Douglas, that was magnificent and thought-provoking, and I think all of us who appreciate the work of Sir Walter Scott very much appreciated that view of Scott that you have given us, and I hope that you will accept and wear sometimes the tie of the club, and remember us when you put it around your neck. Well, Sir Walter Scott was born on the 15th of August 1771 in this city. He spent his childhood between here and the Scottish borders, and he began his education at the high school here, and it was in Edinburgh that he undertook his law classes. Here too that his great monument stands to this day, bringing an uplifting and inspiring character to Edinburgh's principal thoroughfare. And soon Sir Walter will watch the city's latest enterprise, its new trams, gliding past him every day. But we shall never know what he thinks. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise and join me in drinking a toast to the city of Sir Walter Scott's birth, the city of Edinburgh. Thank you very much. And now I'm delighted to welcome the Deputy Lord Provost of the City of Edinburgh, Councillor Deidre, to respond to our toast. Deidre.
Thank you very much, Alasdair. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the Lord Provost gives his apologies for this evening, but I am absolutely delighted as Lord Provost, not yet, Deputy Lord Provost of the City of Edinburgh, to be here tonight and to have the opportunity to deliver the reply to Alasdair's wonderful toast. Here in Edinburgh, of course, we take huge pride in our literary heritage, to which Sir Walter is one of the most important and well-known contributors. Edinburgh is the world's first ever UNESCO City of Literature, and we should be very proud of our significant literary status, formed by great writers such as Scott, Robert Louis Stevenson, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and more recently the likes of Alexander McCall Smith, Ian Rankin, Irvine Welsh, and J.K. Rowling, to name but a few. Our literary scene is as strong today as it's ever been. Edinburgh is undoubtedly a city that fueled the imagination of great writers like Scott. It's a city built on books and publishing, full of writers, readers, and an inspiring place for hundreds, even thousands of authors and artists. Scott's words of "mine own romantic town" eloquently encapsulates Edinburgh's appeal. That's quite an accomplishment, as describing Edinburgh in such few words can be a challenge. This is a city that can certainly never be pegged as one thing. It is a city of contrasts and surprises. From the atmospheric cobbled streets of the Old Town to the beautiful Georgian avenues of the New Town, Edinburgh's ability to fuse its historic past of tradition and culture with the modern world of business, tourism, nightlife, and a world-class selection of festivals is what makes it the vibrant, diverse, and inspiring capital that it is today. Edinburgh, of course, though, was a very different place in Scott's time. Princess Street must have looked quite bare without the monument that bears his name, towering above the citizens below, as the author Bill Bryson described it, like a Gothic rocket ship, or, as Charles Dickens remarked, like a spire of a Gothic church had taken off and stuck in the ground. I'm sure both are a compliment in their own unique way. While the Scots Monument is a hard one to miss, Edinburgh is pebbled with statues and monuments to its great citizens. David Hume, Adam Smith, John Braidwood, and James Clerk Maxwell, to name but a few who've been immortalised in stone around the city. Only 2 women, though, so far. I feel duty-bound to mention that, 2 days as it is before International Women's Day. Now, Sir Walter Scott served the city of Edinburgh well in other ways, of course, too. The visit of George IV, which by all accounts Scott orchestrated, saw the presentation of Highland society and Highlanders to the king. So that visit saw the Highlands and Lowlands form, and Douglas has mentioned this, even create a new Scottish national identity, exploiting the iconic symbols of kilts and tartans, amongst others. Unfortunately, Scott also insisted that everyone at the very special reception dinner took home their glass, Sir Walter unfortunately put his own in a back pocket and then sat on it, resulting in most of it having to be retrieved from his posterior at a later date. It certainly gives a new meaning to his infamous quote, "A glass of wine is a glorious creature and it reconciles poor humanity to itself." He's of course famous too for having painstakingly pieced together the mystery of the missing honours of Scotland, subsequently rediscovering them, as I'm sure you all know, in a trunk in Edinburgh Castle. There's a beautiful mural picture in the European room of the city chambers of James II wearing the honours of Scotland at his coronation. And we like to point out to visitors that these are the only surviving and original crown jewels from the kingdoms of England and Scotland. And indeed the reason that they have survived at all in their original state is because they were almost unbelievably lost for so long before being found by Scott's detective work. Now, Scott has, as has been mentioned, of course, loved to write about Scotland and Edinburgh, and there are many references to the city in Marmion and Waverley, but the one novel I think most closely associated with Edinburgh has to be The Heart of Midlothian, with its striking description of the Porteous riot. However, since part of the blame for that deeply regrettable incident arguably fell on the Lord Provost of the day, I'm sure the current Lord Provost would appreciate me moving on swiftly. The Council aims to preserve the legacy of this city's great writers and help pass down knowledge of our literary heritage to new generations. Our superb Writers' Museum forms part of the City of Edinburgh's museum service and is dedicated to three of Scotland's greatest writers, Walter Scott, Robert Burns and Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm very pleased to say that in 2013 the museum welcomed over 43,000 visitors through its doors, a clear indication of the huge draw of Edinburgh's literary heritage to visitors, both national and international, and of just how much our literary heritage is valued. In that museum, visitors, and if you haven't been, I'd urge you to go, visitors can find out more about Scott through many portraits, manuscripts, books and artefacts, including the rocking horse that Scott used as a child, his chessboard, although I should tell you he himself said, "Surely chess playing is a sad waste of brains," and the dining table from his home in Castle Street given to his lawyer in part payment of legal expenses following Scott's bankruptcy in 1826. Outside the Writers' Museum too, in Macker's Court on Scott's commemorative stone, there's a map of Scotland over which are the much quoted words, "This is my own, my native land." Walter Scott was a man of immense output who gained prestige and influence, both nationally and internationally. As quoted from Count Robert of Paris, "1 hour of life, crowded to the full with glorious action and filled with noble risks, is worth whole years of those mean observances of paltry decorum." Sir Walter Scott certainly lived a crowded life. Historical novelist, playwright, poet, and son of Edinburgh. The city is proud to be associated with such a man. Thank you.